Miss South Africa, Shudufhadzo Musida, has partnered with the South African Depression and Anxiety Group to tackle the stigma surrounding mental health. Musida launched her online mental health initiative called Mindful Mondays this week. Now, this initiative aims to change the narrative around depression, trauma and anxiety. Mental health is still considered a taboo subject, and Musida wants to change that mindset one conversation at a time with her online initiative. To take us deeper into this initiative, I'm joined by her in studio. That's Shudufhadzo Musida, together with Sadag Projects Manager Vanisha Goran, who joins us via Zoom. Thank you both for joining us. Now, Shudufhadzo, before we get into this initiative with Sadag, I believe it's important that we hear your story and get to understand why you felt it important to spearhead this initiative. Talk us through the effects of bullying and how this has impacted you at a very young age.
So I felt like this was quite an important conversation to have because especially now during COVID-19, people have lost jobs, livelihoods, loved ones, and it's time for us not only to heal physically but mentally too. I believe that the other cannot exist without the other. So for example, physical and mental health have to coexist together. So it was quite important for me to start this conversation because I grew up around a community where talking about mental health, suffering from mental illnesses was considered a taboo, often associated with stuff like witchcraft. But even in other society, more sophisticated societies, you find that it's still a taboo conversation when people are even ashamed to say that they get help or they're not okay. So the whole point of this conversation was to inform how we as a society view mental health and destigmatize it ultimately so we can start engaging in this conversation and heal one step at a time while rebuilding this nation. I think it's quite important for us to get to a point where we let one another know that it's okay to not be okay. It doesn't make you any weaker. But it just makes you stronger that you can acknowledge the fact that you're not okay. It's okay to seek help. And there's so many resources, and that's the reason why we partnered up with Sadag, because they've been doing the work around the country and showing that it's possible to get help even with issues of accessibility and affordability.
I want us to expand a bit about the sentiment that you raise about the effects and challenges that have been brought about by COVID-19 and how this poses a serious threat to people's mental health and even the emotional state as well. Why did you feel it was important to start this conversation to also kind of push back against this whole concept that mental health isn't an issue that people want to talk about?
So mental health has always been around. It's just a conversation that we never engaged in before. Now with COVID-19, it's been exacerbated because people need help. People need, we need to be a community of sorts. And I thought it was quite important for us to start engaging in this conversation now because people need to know that they're not alone. We're going through this together, and just as we came together to fight the pandemic and adhere to COVID-19 regulations, we need to come together to heal mentally as a community and tell one another that, okay, we're not alone, but we can do this together. There are resources available if you need the help. It's okay to seek help. And spread that kind of message and start the conversation and work towards destigmatizing mental health.
All right, and let's now speak about this concept or this Mindful Mondays. Why did you feel that it was important to start this conversation? And just take us through how this initiative first came about.
So the initiative first came about after I won. So after I won, Sadag sent me a message on Twitter saying, I would love to work with you. So I immediately sent them a message saying, I'd love to work with you too. Let's see what we can do. And then I came up with the idea that how about we start doing a weekly sort of initiative where we have conversations around mental health, where we educate people. So we had a lot of meetings around that because mental health is such a sensitive topic. It's quite important for us to plan around it and make sure that it comes to fruition properly. And then with those conversations, then earlier this year when everyone was open, we started having the conversations about what we want to speak about, who we want to bring in, and that's where Sadag came in. They brought in different experts, helped us with the topics and the questions that most people may have. And then from an interactive standpoint, I went on my own Instagram and said, what would you like to know about mental health? What would you like to hear on Mindful Mondays? Because like you said earlier, it's one conversation at a time, but we all learn different things every single day. I'm still learning as time goes by. And that's how Mindful Mondays came about, as a way to educate and again inform how we as a society view mental health and ultimately destigmatize it, and by bringing in different experts and different perspectives from different communities to speak about mental health and educate all of us.
Vanisha, I also want to bring you into this conversation and discuss the partnership with Sadag to tackle the stigma around mental health. Firstly, speak to us about how this initiative came about and why you felt it important to collaborate with Shudufhadzo.
We're actually super proud. We're so proud and so honored to be in partnership with Miss South Africa, to have that image, that person that has so much reach towards the youth, towards people in general, South Africa in general. And we love the fact that she wanted to be a part of creating that conversation around mental health, to tackle sharing coping skills, to create the awareness. And that's where it all started. And with Mindful Mondays, I think it's going to be wonderful because we're reaching the youth. Doing it on Instagram means that we're reaching the youth on a platform that they actually use the most. And I think that's brilliant and it's wonderful. And Sadag's main motive is always to just create the awareness, to share the information, and just to make everyone aware that, as Shudu said, it's okay to not be okay.
Yeah. And are you confident that these platforms will help debunk the myths around mental health and also encourage people to speak out about these issues?
Definitely. Even if Sadag and even through Mindful Mondays, if we can reach one person and help one person, we've done a wonderful job. And I think with sharing the information, with having the experts, with even, as Shudu mentioned, the topics were all, brought out through what was requested. And that is lovely because that's what people are needing. And we all know that within this COVID space, it's been very hard for so many people. We've lost the way that we used to live before. We've changed, we've had to adapt. And for so many that never experienced any mental health issue before are now feeling anxious, are feeling stressed and feeling overwhelmed. And we just want to share that, there are tips, there are self-help tips, there are resources. Call in, reach out and find that help so that you can then, carry on with your daily life, with your daily routine better.
That brings me to my next question as to how do people get involved with this platform? How do we engage with the platform as well? And how do people seek help through this initiative?
So through Mindful Mondays, it's on Instagram. It happens every week on that Monday. People will log in, watch the live video. There's also recordings of it that can be accessed after that. And also, if you want to reach out, go onto the Sadag website. It's www.sadag.org. There's so much information. There's toolkits, there's resources, there's videos, there's information. And if you're needing anything else, phone us on one of our helplines, reach out and ask for help for yourself or for a loved one.
Shudufhadzo, let's bring you back into this conversation now. I want us to discuss the first session that you held about Mindful Mondays. What transpired there and what kind of conversations were being had?
So one big thing that came out of the conversation that we had on Monday was mental wealth. So we were in discussion with Mr. Zamombele, who is a clinical psychologist and a Sadag board member. And basically what we were talking about was mental health 101. What it is, how to differentiate between mental health and mental illness, how learning about high functioning depression, how to cope, who it affects, because most people think with mental health it affects certain people and not everyone. But he was even telling us about a case about a 2-year-old who he treated, and most people were very shocked about that, to learn that a 2-year-old can actually suffer from a mental illness or be in need of mental health assistance. So it was quite an interesting conversation where a lot of people were engaging, sharing their stories, where I learned a lot as well, and it opened a new avenue to a different conversation whereby most people, issues of affordability, accessibility, which we hope to tackle in the future, were brought up, and it was basically mental health 101, one of the most interesting conversations I've had.
Did you get a sense that these discussions helped?
Yes. So a lot of people were sharing their stories. And the beauty about sharing your story is the fact that the next person starts sharing their stories because they feel like, oh, okay, it's okay for me to speak about this. I'm not the only one. It's not a shameful thing to speak about. A lot of people, a lot of clinical psychologists actually have reached out saying, we want to get involved, we want to help out. So it's almost like we're building this community of mental health awareness and starting conversations around mental health where it's not shameful anymore, you know? And you know that you're not alone. If you need help at the end of it, I posted helplines that they can reach Sadag on. But moreover, it's a beautiful thing to see that we start the conversation, but someone else can carry it on. So it's almost like they pay it forward. And we, like I said, we're building this beautiful community where mental health is not something to be ashamed of.
Yeah, I actually want to reflect back to your journey with mental health and some of the challenges that you faced when you were much younger. What do you think stood out in a sense of seeking help? Did you feel that you could share this experience with other people?
When I decided to go to seek help, to get therapy, it wasn't because something enormous happened in my life. It was just a culmination of a lot of years where I thought I could not seek help. And then you get there, you start changing the narrative of what is wrong with me to how can we fix this? How do we move forward? And that's the beautiful thing about seeking help. You realize that you're not alone. You realize that you can live a normal and a healthy life. There's so many things about yourself that you discover, and it's a beautiful process where you learn self-love. I was bullied, for example, but I had to learn through reading, through therapy, through actively being self-aware that it was never something personal. It was never a reflection of me, but rather a reflection of the next person who was bullying me. So as soon as I realized that, it was like, oh, it wasn't personal. Yes, it's very difficult to accept that, but it's a beautiful realization when you realize that you are not the problem, you know? Because most of the time, if you're being bullied, you blame yourself. But then you get to realize that it was never personal.
Venetia, I actually want to bring you back into this discussion, and just off the back of what Shudufhadzo is saying, how do you discover or how do you find out that that there is a problem? What are the telltale signs?
I think it's so important to just know a loved one or know yourself. If you're feeling, you're feeling down, you know that you used to enjoy certain things, and now you're not enjoying that. You're not eating the same. You're not sleeping well, you're not doing well, or you're sleeping too much, and you know that I'm not feeling well. I'm stressed. I'm overwhelmed. I have all of these things on my task list to do, and I can't manage it. And you can't carry out your daily activities. Reach out. Those are the things that actually we at Sadag, that we want you to phone us. We want you to tell us that, I'm not sleeping like I used to. I'm not eating like I used to. I'm not, I'm stressed. I'm overwhelmed. I can't manage. What can we do about that? And it's those little things. And I think from the start, and as Shudu mentioned, it's a culmination. When we don't feel like we can speak about it, we tend to just say, okay, no, we're going to manage this and it's okay. And we're going to manage this and it's okay, until the point comes where we can't manage. And I think it's so important for us to know ourselves, know our loved ones, know our children. If you're noticing your child is not doing well, they're not coping in school, they've now withdrawn a bit, reach out, ask them. There's nothing wrong with asking, are you okay today? Is there something that I can do to help and support you?
So we are fast running out of time, but I think it's important that we also discuss or touch back on the differences between mental health and mental illness. What is your understanding of it?
Mental health is everything that has to do with the mental space. So checking in, being self-aware, being healthy mentally, basically. It's almost like physical health, But just as there's physical health and physical illnesses, that's the differentiation that's there. So the mental illnesses include depression, anxiety, PTSD, bipolar disorder. There's so many facets that exist there. So just because you're taking care of your mental health does not mean that you necessarily have a mental illness. That's my understanding of it. And also, just going back to what Venetia was saying, it's quite important that we know our loved ones and we constantly check in. And I think that was the beauty of Mindful Mondays and learning between mental health and mental illnesses and the different symptoms or how to tell what it is. You get to a point where you can identify some of the symptoms that you have while you're on there, and then you realize that yes, I do need help. Yes, I do need to call in and find out if there's something that I need to get help with.
And before we wrap up, what else can we expect from you? Let's speak about the projects that are very close to your heart.
The biggest projects that are close to my heart, mental health, food insecurity. Those are the two biggest projects that are close to my heart, because I feel like they ultimately feed into the bigger plan of educational and economic empowerment. I think once we tackle the mind, it's easier to tackle everything else. There are a lot of things that are going to be happening this year during my reign, but I've had interviews with you guys before, and you guys asked me what projects they were. Mindful Mondays was already in the pipeline, but I'm just the type of person that wants to get the work out, and when it's out, then say this is what we've presented you guys with, because it's one thing for us to say we're going to do this and then we don't do it. I think as a lot of people have noticed, I am a woman of my word. So a lot of projects are coming, and I'm very excited for you guys to be involved.
Well, Godspeed and all the best.
Thank you so much.
Projects. That was the current Miss South Africa, Shudufhadzo Musida, as well as Sadag's Vanisha Goran, speaking to us about a very important issue here and the initiative that they are raising called Mindful Mondays.